everyone supported the idea of a casino over the years. Some worry how it will impact the community's safety and mental health. WIFR's Nathaniel Langley checked out a concert raising awareness of those issues.
Miles from the lights and sparkle of the new casino, Rockford Urban Ministries offered a low-pressure celebration inside Inscape Collective, cautioning the community of a potential rise in gambling addiction.
Everybody is going to know somebody in our town who struggles with this.
Reverend Violet Joniker argues every dollar a city makes from a casino, it takes $3 more to cover social services.
We're expecting to see needs go up in some of our food pantries and our soup kitchens. And we're also expecting to be providing more spiritual support.
Just as the Hard Rock opens, Rockford Urban Ministries provides a sober space for those like Michael, who leads a Gamblers Anonymous group. We'll hide his face to protect his identity.
I myself was a compulsive gambler, and I ended up in a 30-day stay in Ohio.
2 million Americans suffer from a gambling addiction. A career in sales led to Michael joining that statistic.
I wasn't that good, but I knew that if I saw so many people, I'd make so many sales. Well, guess what? That doesn't work with gambling. Once you start chasing losses, it gets worse.
Even before the casino opened, Michael's Loves Park group jumped from 6 to 20 members in recent years. Some didn't survive their struggles.
Couldn't recover and wouldn't recover, and they kept going down that chute, and they actually did kill themselves.
Reverend Joniker worries the casino money will leave the community, but she hopes for the best.
So I still love this city. I'm excited about it. And tonight is really just a reminder that there are alternatives to gambling, alternatives to drinking.
Hard Rock encourages those with a gambling problem to use self-exclusion programs. The Illinois Gaming Board allows anyone to sign up to stop themselves from placing any bet.
Thank you, Nathaniel. And a free national helpline also is available to call. Dial 1-800-GAMBLER for more resources and local referrals.